When was the last time Nicolas Cage and John Travolta had a good movie? So if you're just joining us, internet, we're going to tell you that if you, especially, there's two things. One, I'm just telling Adam and Brad, if you got, it used to be Michael Pare was a guaranteed a bad movie.
I don't even know who that is.
John Travolta, of course not. Streets of Fire, because you were like not even born yet. John Travolta and Nicolas Cage, those are two guaranteed bad movies. And then you sort of take like the John Travolta and Nicolas Cage, and then you add Netflix to that. Like all three of those, you know it's going to be bad.
Yeah, but what about Face Off? I mean, the ultimate Nicolas Cage, John Travolta.
He used to make good movies. Face Off was awesome with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. John Woo, of course. But what's
I haven't
happened
thought
now?
about that movie in a long time.
That was
I
John
might have
Woo?
to watch that today.
Yeah, that was John Woo. That was a great movie for.
I forgot that was John Woo.
But that's what I'm saying. But now, if you get presented a John Travolta movie in your Netflix or Hulu queue, you know it's going to be like, oh my God, how come I didn't hear about this? Because it went straight to DVD. Like to DVD? Yeah, only to DVD, not even to Blu-ray.
Or streaming. Hold on, because I
don't know why I'm not working at Netflix. I have better taste than I don't know who is choosing this stuff at Netflix. Who's greenlighting this thing? I don't
know. Netflix. Most Netflix originals are okay. For me, this modern day straight to DVD is the ones that go straight to Hulu.
I think so. Look.
Okay, it was Mandy. Mandy was the one I heard was actually not a bad. I mean, it's 92% Rotten Tomatoes right now, so that's Nick Cage movie that supposedly is okay.
I agree with you. The Netflix originals look like they should be better, Brad, but it's really like it's just so beautiful. It's so beautifully shot. It's got this facade. It seems like it's got quiet moments. It seems like it's got it's a good soundtrack, and then you at the end you're like, oh, I just wasted 2 hours of my time. It's like every day on Netflix, their plan is to make you not cancel, right? But like, where's the content's going to make you stick around? I don't know.
And he was a voice on Into the Spider-Verse, or
he was.
He was Spider-Man Noir.
Spider-Man Noir.
Oh, okay, see, that's a good movie he was in.
Yeah,
because they kept his face out of it.
He was out of it. I'm just saying. But Nicolas Cage used to be like, wow, this is The Rock, right? I mean, we're talking memorable movies that were enjoyable, not like masterpieces, but. Now, okay. See,
I can't get on the hate train because those movies back in the day were so good, and so many of them that I can't get on the hate train for Nicolas Cage.
Are you really wearing a Tampa Bay Buccaneers jersey?
Yeah,
inside and out.
It's not inside out. It's just super old.
Nice. Flash Photo says, "Did PC World turn into Film World?"
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because you know what? Film critics, about as accurate as we are. Oh, that's a burn on both myself and film critics.
Yeah. Actually, hey, we have I don't know how to say this name. Plip Skip on Twitch says Nicolas Cage was really good in Mandy. All right, I do want to check that out.
All right, but hey, we are going to be talking about this is all kinds of craziness. GTX 1660.
TI.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Don't forget that.
Oh, come on. It's already brand new. What the hell do you even need the TI for?
Because they're going to put out a 1660 as well.
Well, but then shouldn't it just be 1660?
Yeah, but then they can cut this one down.
If you start with the TI, you can cut it down.
I don't even know anything about it except that I've stopped caring. And then
wait till we get the show before we dive too deep into
Sound Blaster Super X5 review.
Yeah. Nope. There's no Sound Blaster in that product name.
What?
That's a whole different series.
You're right.
Whole different
the
product category.
Super X5. Super Creative Super X5. You're right. Yep. I'm totally wrong. Okay. Ready? We got to do this. Brad's got to get out of here. He's got some important stuff.
Yep. I'm ready. Let's do it.
In this episode of The Full Nerd, GTX 1660 Ti and Creative Super X5 review. Welcome to The Full Nerd, episode 82. I'm your host, Gordon Mong, with co-host Brad Charkis.
Wearing my Bucks jersey today because the Saints didn't just go down. They went down very painfully.
What does it have to do with the Buccaneers?
They're in the same division, man. They're in the same division. I can't get on the Saints bandwagon.
Oh, I see. Well, I don't know that call.
That was a
Oh
bad
yeah,
call.
that was garbage.
call.
That was a bad call.
There were a lot of bad calls in both games. It was horrible.
I mean,
It
it's
was just
football for
horrible.
you, right?
But at least they can review them. I don't understand why they just can't review every single call because
It takes too long, dude.
They already take 3.5 hours to watch a game.
Yeah, to play an hour game.
At this point, it's just the calls are so. I mean, NBA, the calls are like, what? I mean, I just called it just and like. Only in the NBA in a professional sport can you have. Well, we'll call a call later to make up for that call. What the hell kind of rules are that? And of course, Adam Patrick Murray is controlling the vertical and horizontal.
We got a couple people in the chat, like Peter, saying that might have been the first time you ever did one take.
Yeah, I think so. It might have actually been the first take. Because there's nothing. I mean, there's really two things.
And Peter says it's not even Christmas, and it was a Christmas miracle.
It is.
So yeah.
It's amazing. I think it's only because there's two topics, right? Two topics.
Yes.
And honestly, I'm confused by the first topic already.
Which is
all right.
GeForce
GTX, not RTX.
Ti. Rumors, hot and heavy rumors of a brand new GeForce card.
Fill us in, Brad. Help.
So basically, rumors have been popping up the past few weeks, including one this very morning that it popped up on the Ashes of the Singularity benchmark of GTX, not RTX, 1660, not 1160 Ti. So it's a GTX 1660 Ti built using the same Turing cores as the other RTX things, but with all the RTX dedicated hardware stripped out. So no tensor cores, no real-time ray tracing cores or RT cores. And it has several hundred fewer GPU cores than shader cores than the RTX 2060. So it's looking like a non-ray tracing capable mid-range card that's slightly slower in traditional games than the RTX 2060, if the rumors are correct. Early rumors have it with the same amount of texture units and ROPs as the RTX 2060. It's looking like it'll probably still have 6 gigabytes of RAM, although it's up in the air whether it be GDDR5X or GDDR6. So yeah, it looks like even though we were surprised that the RTX 2060 came out priced like a GTX 1070, it's not really a mid-range card anymore. It looks like NVIDIA might be preparing a mid-range GTX 1060 replacement with no ray tracing.
And Flash Photo's asking no DLSS either. Is that only on RTX?
Yes, that's only on RTX because that DLSS specifically taps into, they're called tensor cores, machine learning cores. And that's tensor cores and RT cores are what make RTX.
Got it.
So this sounds like... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you think I would have known this by now from all the times that he's talked about it on stage.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Well, that's why Jensen needs to talk to you about it some more. That's why you stay on message all the time so people eventually catch on what your message is. Does it sound like these are salvaged RTX cores? I mean... Because a lot of people thought there was going to be where the 2060 was salvaged.
I don't believe it's salvaged whatsoever because you wouldn't really salvage them because the rumor is that this doesn't have any RTX hardware whatsoever, which make it much more affordable. So I would doubt that they would salvage them. The RTX cards, I'm assuming, are already salvaged Quadro cards. So I would assume this would be a whole new die. The early rumors say that it's a whole new die, so whole new GPU. So, yeah, TU116 for the rumored 1660 Ti, as opposed to TU106 for the 2060.
This seems so odd to even introduce a mid-range part. Why not just keep rolling with 1060 out there? Because then they come out with a 1060 GDDR6 card or something crazy like that. Or is that just a rumor
they have
too?
not. They came out with like a very oddly configured version of both 1060 and 1050. They were pumping out all kinds of weird ones that were worse than the originals recently. I think it makes a lot of sense actually because the RTX 2060, starts at $350, and that's not really a mid-range price. Like today, we did a post about a deal because it was so good. You could pick up an 8 gigabyte Radeon RX 580 for $160.
Yeah.
And I mean, the GTX 1060 these days just can't compete with the pricing of the Radeon cards. They have nothing new right now because the RTX 2060 is a whole different market, in my opinion. And during a Q&A with VentureBeat a couple weeks ago, it might be, I forget, it's the holiday season CES recently. Jensen actually told reporters that the final inventory for Pascal cards like the GTX 1060, 1070, 1080 are finally starting to run out. So they're going to need new cards to fill all those price points.
Huh. Interesting. I just sort of assumed that we were just on the promised land to 7 nanometer, but that even if we get there for both of them anytime soon, those cards are not going to be cheap or plentiful, I imagine.
No, they'd come to the high end first. I'm not surprised they launched the high end cards, including the TI first this time, because I would expect this generation to last much longer than the last generation. But they still need to make these cards in the meantime. The thing that I find interesting is that not only does the rumored specs for the 1660 Ti, not only does it not have ray tracing, it has about 400 fewer shader cores than the RTX 2060. So it's going to be, probably a significant bit behind the RTX 2060. So 2060 versus 1660 Ti won't just be, do you want ray tracing or not? The 2060, if this all proves true, will actually have better performance in actual games or traditional games.
Classic games.
Over a 2060 or over a 1060? You mean it'll have a
2060?
The 2060 will be the fastest.
Right.
The 1660
step down?
Step down by
400,
about
400, 380.
Yeah, and then the 1060 is about 300 CUDA cores under the 1660.
Well, what do you think?
Falls in the middle.
What do we think that the price would come out at? Do you think there would still be a bump from when the 1060 or whatever released?
I think it would depend on whether or not they use GDDR6. Because if they use GDDR6 memory, that's very expensive. I would expect that to be 260 to 300, like the 1060 came out at. If that's the case, if it's GDDR5, I wouldn't be surprised if they push it down a little bit lower to try to compete against the RX 590 and whatnot.
So like a $200 card, then it sounds like almost with 5X or 5.
Yeah. There's all kinds of variables, but 200 to 300 is obviously where it will fall.
Wow. So it could have an awesome amount of performance for the money. Mm-hmm. Is it enough to? Well, we don't know because we don't know how to perform. Of course, we don't even know if it's real yet. Of course,
no idea. There's an awful lot of smoke on this one, though. There's a lot of rumors from places that are traditionally pretty accurate with their rumors. It's starting to pop up in leaked benchmark databases and stuff. So,
what I need to get is a tool where I can just spoof hardware. I can just spoof the hardware tools. You can just, because the games will go in and they will, they'll ask the card what their specs are. They don't actually go and check. They just ask the card. I just make up stuff randomly and just start populating all these different popular databases and then write about it yourself. Then oh, look, I found this.
Yeah, that's the reason we don't cover those leaks so much because they can be faked and it's not super hard. But there's enough of them paired with enough reports from sites that are traditionally pretty accurate with their claims about upcoming GPU stuff that, it's worth paying attention to.
But I mean, looking at, because everybody was absolutely sure the 1160 was coming out at CES too, but that never showed up.
Nope, it wound up being the RTX 2060. The 1160, I believe it was called, in Adored TV's video is what originally launched it. It's looking like the specs actually line up really well with this 1660 Ti, so
right.
I find that an interesting tidbit.
So, I mean, but it's just every bit as possible that this thing won't come out either, right? And it's just, who knows? That's the issue with leaks and getting your hopes up.
Yeah. The thing is, I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't say Adored TV got it wrong necessarily. I think he got the gist of it right with this. It's just the timing of it in the product name, which is all marketing details that can always get changed at the last second. So
yeah, I mean, for all we know, they changed it. It was like, we don't want him to be right. We're going to change it to 1660. Even the name is kind of wacky to me. I mean, I guess they said
it makes no sense to me. It makes no sense.
Well, but
how is it not 1160?
Because it's 500 better than 1160, Brad. I mean, I don't know if that. I don't know if people actually react because at the very high end, people who buy these parts tend to be, they they do their hyper research on, they know every single spec and detail of people who buy 2080 Ti's or high end video cards. You get down to like 200, sub 200 of cards, and it's a lot more mainstream, and they react a lot more to model numbers. That's why there's been a lot of attention with Max Q and laptops, because at the high end, 2080 or 1080 Max Q is easy to explain because people who bought a Max Q laptop knew what they were looking at. You get down to $1,000 laptop, and Max Q was a concept that the average consumer just flew right over their head.
There's no idea about. Yep.
Yeah, at least that was a rationale I heard for why they tried to get away from the Max Q, because a regular person would just be like, huh? It sounds worse.
I got a couple questions. First one from the chat. Gutter's asking, why not just call it GTX 2060 and enable DLSS? Obviously, we answered that DLSS question. But what if they still kept the same number, but you had a GTX and RTX? Do you think that would be super confusing, or more or less than 1660?
I think it would be too confusing in general for what Gordon was just talking about. This is a mainstream product. If you had RTX 2060 and GTX 2060, it'd be way too much having to explain when you're in Best Buy or whatever.
Okay. And then follow-up question from me. So obviously these mainstream cards are the ones that get sold the most, right?
Yeah.
But, NVIDIA is really trying to push this ray tracing future forward. I mean, it almost seems like they're trying to play both games, like to, say, hey, we still have the mainstream card without RTX, but also we need to invest in the future because RTX is where it's at. I mean, this still could split the developer base, because if the developers want to just target the mainstream, they're just going to do that, right?
Yeah. Yes, but that's already true because AMD's in the consoles. AMD has market share in the PC space. The vast majority of GPUs you see in the Steam hardware survey are not RTX ones. They're older ones. RTX is pretty new. Mm-hmm. All that hardware is very expensive, and you got to start somewhere is what I would say to that. And I think it makes sense for them to roll it out where they can, as they have. I think it also makes sense for once you start getting down to 350 and below, once you start targeting mainstream, I think it also makes sense to strip it out. One, just to make the product cheaper and more competitive. Two, because once you go through cutting so many RT cores and Tensor cores out, you're just going to get an awful experience if you try to stuff it in there. So I think RTX 2060 is a pretty good compromise, and I like the idea of stripping out the stuff and making the mainstream ones more affordable for now. Does that answer your question? Does that make sense?
No, I think it makes sense.
I felt kind of rambly there.
No, it's fine. Another side note. Sorry, somebody would mention this in the chat earlier. I don't remember your name. Was saying, how come these other places get leaks but PC World never does?
PC World and most, a lot of bigger publications that you read, we hear and know a lot more things than we publish. So that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't. I mean,
people ask questions.
We know things, and we can tell you some things that we hear that we think are, kind of fun just to discuss, but we're not going to go out and necessarily pursue the leak stories. It's not what you can prove when you're a journalist. It's what you can verify. So it's not what you think or what you've heard. It's what you can verify. So we don't deal in rumors too much because of that.
Okay, just a question. And Blue Kid's asking, have you played the Quake 2 ray tracing mod using 100% path tracing?
Oh,
have you seen
that?
I have
not yet. I really want to.
That looks Gordon, did you hear about that?
No, I'm going to go look it up right now.
Yeah, somebody modded Quake 2 with ray tracing. And, you'd be surprised for such an old game. That looked pretty damn nice.
No, I haven't played that. That's on my to-do list. I've been busy with CES and etc.
It does look pretty good. I wonder what the God, that brings back some memories.
Yeah, and because it's Quake 2, I mean, the overhead isn't like a ton, so it performs really smooth, or at least, for a mod.
That is pretty cool. The entire game is, wow. That's impressive. Is it 60 frames a second? No, I mean, it's got to be higher than that.
Yeah, I think it was running higher than that.
But it's fully ray traced. It's not a hybrid, so.
No,
Wow.
Anyway, that was a side note.
Yeah, now I'm sidetracked watching this. It looks really weird, though.
Yeah,
The
it's
weapon
weird.
looks weird. But
So
That was actually the Quake games were actually before RTX and DirectX ray tracing came out. I forget however many years back, someone actually made one of the Quake games in real-time ray tracing, and that's what you could use to visualize what is real-time ray tracing. And it was an older version, so you could see all the graininess on the screen, and it was a good thing to watch to really get a feel for what's going on.
That's cool. So let me see who it was. Man, I'm sorry, I can't find it. Oh, there we go, Gutter. What if they rebrand the 1660 to a GTX 2050, so that it's still in the same numbering, but it doesn't have the RTX.
See, that would make a lot of sense to me, but
right,
I
2
can
meaning
get
Turing, right? Two is Turing, yeah.
yeah, but I don't know.
Right? I mean, this is all
That's what
hard, man.
marketing
Product
experts are
names.
paid to do.
Oh,
Like, to me, it would make sense to have one product line with one series of numbers, and above this line it's RTX, below this line is GTX. But if this winds up being true, then they've obviously chosen something different.
What's the sort of predicted performance of this card? I mean, the rumors say it's
About 20% faster than the 1060.
1068 gigs, so
Which no, 6 gig.
Oh.
Which makes sense because, like I said, the GPU cores, the CUDA cores that they have, falls a little bit less than, like, it's like 40% of the difference between the 1060 and 2060. So it makes sense that it would be about 20-25%.
huh. So if the rumors are true, again, who knows whether it's going to materialize? Where's a good I mean, how do you think it's going to do? It's a 250 card then, maybe, possibly? I mean, if we're at 350 for 2060,
That's where I would expect it.
250.
I expect it 250 or maybe 260 to match the 1060. The 1060 launched at 260.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the 1660 Ti does as well. However, if it gets loaded up with GDDR6, I also wouldn't be surprised if it's even more expensive than that. So,
God, it wouldn't make any sense for it to be to introduce a $300
$275. Do you think 275 would fly? Do you think they'd do one in the flat
no.
with a 5 like that?
I think it's a price sensitive card. I think it's going to be GDR5 5X and
also, what's the
250.
Radeon competition at that point?
590 is 200.
Yeah, the 590 just came out theoretically at 290, but you can buy it for 260 everywhere at this point.
Yeah,
But most people are just buying the 580, right? I mean, the 590 is just.
It depends what you're looking for. With the sales that's going on these days, if I was shopping, I'd probably be shopping for a 580.
Right. Interesting. That low end is getting really messy. Really, really messy.
It's been messy with all the different configurations that they're launching, memory configurations. Now this one has 6 gigabytes. This one has 3 gigabytes. This one has GDDR4. This one has 5. This one has 5X. And it's all under the same product names for all these. And it's getting to be a headache.
Well, and plus everybody's awash in 5 series, in 580s because the mining is all over. So it's just crazy.
Yep.
I really wish we'd get away from the feast or famine thing. I mean, the famine was horrible, but now it feels like this is just insane that, what, $160 RX 580 card with probably a couple games or something like that. It's just nuts. It's just nuts.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, all the RTX stuff launched so far, and in my opinion, the Radeon 7 as well, are priced kind of like it's still the middle of the mining craze. Like, I believe that AMD and NVIDIA are still pushing prices upwards, like we're still in the mining craze. So It's nuts with the RX 580 because there's so many of those chips out there. But the new cards, it's like that's how expensive they are, in my opinion.
Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense then, really. I mean, Radeon 7, of course, we'll have to see how it performs, but $700, yeah, I guess you feel better for a lot, like $500, right? But it's 7 nanometer. It's not going to be cheap. There's a lot of things that would contribute to it not being cheap. So,
Yep.
What about the 1050? I mean, where are we at? Is it even worse at $100? I've just not paid attention to the low end. Is it even like more of a mess?
I haven't checked in the past month or so for the 1050 class cards, but don't buy Nvidia if you're looking for $100 to a $250, $300 card, because even if you can find a solidly priced GTX 1050 Ti, let's say, it's still so much slower than the Radeon RX 550. And we saw Radeon RX 570s with 2 free games, 2 free AAA games that are coming out, like The Division or Resident Evil 2, for as cheap as $130 over the past month. So go find, if you're looking to upgrade, now's a pretty decent time to upgrade. The RX 570 is a great card. You can find it that cheap with free games.
I'd pay the extra $30 and get the 580. You wouldn't need it, I guess.
Would too. Although that deal that I mentioned earlier is like ridiculously good. Like we've been seeing RX 580s for, you know, $180, $190, $165 with 2 free games and it's 8 gigabytes. Like that's a ridiculously good deal.
That is just crazy good.
Last question on this rumor before we move on. Can it run Crysis?
You can run Crysis on Intel integrated graphics. Actually, here's a
Ray Trace Crysis. No, it can't. There's no RTX cores.
Brad will clear this up. Is it TI or TI?
If you ask NVIDIA, it's TI. If you ask everybody else, it's TI.
Yeah, I still call it TI because it's titanium, right?
Yeah, it's crazy because you go to NVIDIA briefing or whatever, and they're all up there talking about, you know, GTX 1660 Ti, and it makes my mind trip every time that I hear it. It's TI. Yeah. It's TI.
And I did. Wow, you learn something every day. I didn't realize it stood for titanium. That's funny.
That's yeah. You know, of course, the wackiness of the PC industry is if you look at like power supply ratings, somehow titanium is.
Oh yeah.
Well,
the highest.
Even just in general, for some reason, titanium is somehow valuable, whereas platinum should definitely be higher on that than titanium. So there's uranium, there's plutonium, there's other things you could use that would cost more per ounce.
Well, you're talking power supplies. Platinum's been around forever. They're like, we want a new one. Where do they get? They might as well name it titanium.
How is that though? I just doesn't like. Oh well, you want a pound of titanium or a pound of platinum? Well, I think I'll take the pound of platinum there. So.
All right, let's get into this review, Gordon.
Yeah, so Creative Super X-Fi had a hard time not calling it Sound Blaster.
I've got one right here.
Oh, you do? Good. Yeah. You grab yours.
Yeah, you can. It's a little like a gum stick. Like I could just stick it in my mouth. I'm not going to.
We've talked about that for a long time.
I grabbed
right?
my 1660 Ti. No, I'm just kidding.
Man, spoilers. Leak. Yeah, we've talked about it. We've had friend of the show on, Ryan from Creative. He was in our little behind the scenes for CS as well. You should watch that on YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I mean, we've talked about how it works and whether it's cool or not. Our review is up on the website. You can go read it. Gordon wrote most of it. I only added mostly to the gaming section and a couple things here and there. But I mean, for me, I'll say this high level takeaway. I can't play games without it anymore. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just.
Did you used to use a sound card?
Yeah. I mean, I have a sound card at home, but then I also have some Astro A51s. I have, you know, like, I mean, I have way too many headphones.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've tried a lot of different things, you know, and Hayden comes in here with, you know, like the Razer Nari Ultimates and things like that. So, you know, I'm always checking things out, but like the spatialization for this and the positional, or same thing, but then also just the comfort, just the ease of use. Like I just can't play without it, and like I can take it on the go. You know, it's not an internal sound card. I get to play it anywhere I want. So, you know, if anyone has any questions in the chat, you know, let's open it up there. If you have any questions, if you think, you know, you still don't get it, we can try to, you know, maybe try to explain it again. But really, I mean, for me, for gaming, the takeaway is this is the gaming, you know, card to get if you're just gaming. Obviously, it's not good for like studio production because you need external monitor out and stuff like that. But like,
Right.
I play this on my PS4. I play this on my Switch. I play this on my PC. You can plug it into your phone, which you've mostly been doing the phone stuff, right? So
Yeah, I did a lot of phone stuff, and my take on the Super X5 was I wanted to just try it with a bunch of crappy audio. I think a lot of audiophiles that are into their high sample rate, lossless audio is it's not really probably the what they're aiming at with the Super X5. They do the spatialization, which is they're able to create this 3D space for you. I think it really shines the best with just lousy audio, interestingly. So like YouTube. So I did a lot of YouTube. I did a lot of MP3s. I did lossless and FLAC as well. But I really, really wanted to lean into all the I hate using that word, but I really wanted to just use the thing that people are going to listen to on their phone, which is just crappy audio. And it really just makes most of it shine. And I will say this about the Super X5, you don't know what it is USB dongle, does audio, does spatialization, actually takes your head shape and ear size into account for how it creates the algorithms. I think it is also polarizing, because there are some people who are like, yeah, this doesn't work for me. It's got too much reverb. And that's always been sort of that, that's always been that dig against creative, is you're just, reverb marked up 10 different ways. But I think they have just the right amount in most of the content I tried, where like you're really just like, wow, this is really nice.
Yeah, and especially the spatialization, that extra, plenty of other people have done it, including creative. That extra little part is being able to tune it for how your face work, or how your head and your ears work, because a lot of it's just physics. And then also the headphones too. I mean, we tried a bunch of different headphones on it, to varying degrees. But somebody's asking about crap.
They're asking about crap?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. The how does this compare to like, old, spatialization in older cards and other programs and things like that? And that is the difference, is that this tries to take more things into account, so it should be more accurate. And in my case, I mean, it has been. That's a big difference for sure.
Yeah, and so a lot of the listening I did was, again, with like YouTube videos, and I thought the 3D space was pretty amazing. It really did. I was listening to just weird things like the sounds of a Huey doing flybys, or Corsair cranking his engine up, and it just sounded just like fantastic with the Super X5. And I don't, I've had plenty of sound cards over the years, and I don't remember it ever sounding as good as this. And I did do some comparisons with my Sound Blaster at home that I run in my machine, but it's just sort of like, it's just the right amount of everything. It feels like that it works. And the coolest thing is I brought it to work, and I've been using it at work on my desk, and I can tell you that my company is not going to buy a sound card or anything nice. So it's like, wow, it's actually pretty nice to sit at your desk at work listening to things on YouTube that you might enjoy. You enjoy more with 3D.
Well, and somebody earlier was asking, like, why would I want this over an actual speaker setup? And I'll say, funny enough, this weekend I was playing some Red Dead Redemption 2 on my PS4. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Cowboy game. But I found myself plugging this in, and I was like, yeah, I could listen to it through the sound I have in here. But when I plug it in, I get to crank it as loud as I want, or as quiet as I want. You have more control, and I don't have to disturb my wife, like working in the other room or something. Like I feel like there's more factors to take into, hey, you know what? I'm just going to plug it in. I'm going to listen to it the way I like to listen to it, and not have to worry about anything else. So in a lot of ways, I've actually been finding myself preferring like this over speakers.
Really?
Yeah, just because I can kind of fine tune it the way I want to. So, yeah.
I mean, I think for a lot of people, positional over, surround sound over speakers is going to be most effective for everybody. But, it's so rare for anybody to use a full 5.1 or 7.1 setup for gaming these days.
Yeah, right. I mean, especially at the PC. I mean, if anyone has it, it's at least for like the TV or the living room kind of setup. So
yeah, so
it's funny because I've actually been thinking about getting a 5.1 setup actually for my office because I have the room for it. And reading this review of yours, I'm kind of on the fence now whether or not I should just buy this $150 dongle and use my existing headphones because it sounds like it does a pretty all right job. I listen to YouTube, I listen to Spotify, and I play video games. And listen to you guys talk, it sounds like this might actually be a better option for me.
Right. As long as you're running analog. So this is USB audio. It's a USB audio class device, and it's 3.5 millimeter. As long as you have analog out, it'll work.
I got some Sennheisers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you have a decent pair of headphones. And I will say, I think definitely the quality of the headphones mattered. I tried a couple of gaming headsets that I have here, and it's just like, oh my God, they were just not. It definitely did not make a bad set of headphones sound better, right?
No, definitely not.
Can you even get gaming headsets that's just over 3.5 these days?
You
Oh yeah,
still can. You
yeah,
still
yeah.
can.
Hayden still brings them in.
And they're really just like, yeah, I mean, they sound, and then the funny thing about audio is I find you don't have the same memory you do for audio the way you do for an image. So if you look at a picture, well, except for Battlefield, but I mean, there's like, if you look at something ray traced or whatever, or something at super high res and just beautiful textures, and then you look at a low texture version or highly compressed, and you're like, oh. But for audio, you really almost have to A/B everything, and then
but even beyond that, like, I mean, I've done a lot of those demos with my wife, and I mean, she's, I love her, but she's not super technical. Like, sometimes I show her things that I'm super excited about, and I'm like, check this out, and she's like, I don't really see a difference. I'm glad you're happy about it. But when I showed her this, the thing for her, and we talked with Ryan too. Some people feel claustrophobic or get a sense of like weirdness, like with wearing headphones, because the sound is literally right by your ears. But when she put it on, it spatialized it out away from her ears in a way where she was like, oh, I'm not scared to wear headphones and listen to this stuff, so that, I mean, that's another thing that you don't even need A/B testing there. Like, like she's not super technical, and she still picked up on the fact like, oh wow, I don't feel like it's right against my head anymore, and she really liked that.
yeah.
And somebody else was asking the difference between closed back, open back, in ear, over ear, on ear headphones. I'll say for the kind of work I do, I typically like over the ear open back, which allows more of the sound around you to be mixed in with what you're hearing. And that's actually how I liked the Super X5 the best too, just because like it felt like it was when it's spatializing speakers in the space with you, and you can also hear the rest of the space around you like you would if you were just sitting listening to a 5.1 setup. That's how I liked it. But it's definitely a preference thing. I'm not a fan of like in ear anyway. But that's, maybe I'm sensitive to my hearing. So
Yeah.
But what were you? What did you like? Did you have a preference?
I actually, gosh, it sort of depended on the content almost. So I used, over ear, closed, and then closed back, and I also use in ear. So it's sort of, I would say it depended on the song. I mean, that's one of the things about the Super X5 is I think most people are going to go, yeah, this was a solid investment, but there's going to be people that like, I don't like it, And I think and it seemed to change from song to song, how it processed it.
Yeah.
I think the funny thing is it sounds like we would say audiophile, kind of like, but it's not really necessarily when you say it's more trying to make audio better for the average person rather than.
That seems like an apt description from everything you've said so far.
I would say that on top of recreating an experience of listening to a stereo rather than listening on headphones. Sure, you physically have headphones on, but the idea is that it sounds like it's coming out from a stereo.
Yeah.
A 5.1 stereo, a stereo setup, whatever,
But, so here's the funny thing, Adam. Like, I love it. I actually carry the Super X5 with, a set of in-ear earbuds with me, but I don't use them when I go anywhere because it's a pain, Even though I really enjoy it, I think it sounds better. Bluetooth wireless is actually so convenient that like, oh, okay, I'm not going to break out this thing, plug it into my phone, and run this wire through my jacket.
I mean, the same thing for me for like, yeah, when I'm commuting, I'm listening to podcasts, you know, and I don't get that ear fatigue anyway. So, you know, yeah, I'm fine with it too. Really, that's why I think for like a PC gamer, like, you know, you can put this on your laptop, you can put it on your desktop, you know, it stays at home. Or if you want to take it with you at a LAN party, whatever, you know, it's portable when you need it. But I wouldn't use it for like music and podcast stuff. That's just me.
Yeah. I'll have to actually try it with just simply running it full time for gaming, because I always go back to my sound card. It's just something about having a USB. It just seems weird to run a USB audio device, but I guess it does make a lot of sense.
Well,
you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's still that, you know, even when we were at CES and we were talking with Ryan about the new Super X5 Theater, which is essentially taking this and putting it in a little theater box of up to 4 people, and everyone has their own low latency headphones. It's still, my first reaction is I'd still rather plug it in and run my wired headphones. But I know that's not the point of this. So, you know, it's you know, there's still that stigma around it. So it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get that. So, yeah. Anyway, Super X5, we love it. What we give it a 4.5 out of 5. We give it a Editor's Choice Award. I mean, for me, like I said, I can't game without it at this point.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So,
okay.
You know.
Well, see, I have to admit what I do, because I don't run both earphones on when I play games, because somebody may, if I'm home alone, yes, but usually I'm at home. There's somebody else in the house, and if you run both earphones when you play games, then you're going to get yelled at. Or the other
I always do this.
Yeah, I do the two. Right, you run it off.
Well, that's why you have open back. That's
yeah, see, I don't have a. Yeah. I mean, but you know, it's pretty rare to find open back gaming.
Oh yeah, for gaming. Oh yeah, definitely.
So that actually would be nice. I was thinking I should create a device, because what I do is sometimes I'll play a game and I wear both, and then usually I'll get yelled at, or you get the crap scared at you. Ever that happens? You're like into it, and then you get touched suddenly.
Someone taps on your shoulder.
You're like, what? And you do the full freak out.
And they're like, I knocked like 5 times, and like, but there's explosions and screaming monsters.
I know, right?
I know. And then they get angry because, well, you didn't call me the last 5 times. Like, can't you see I'm wearing headphones? There should be somebody needs to invent a gaming device that they press it in the room, and then the light lights up in your monitor, so you just know like a light. It's like, oh, then you know somebody is standing there, and your wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, or kids are not just going to scare the crap out of you by tapping on your shoulder in a game. Could you imagine playing like that Alien Covenant game or whatever the was? Holy smokes, that would just isolation. That would just. That's a good device.
I could only play that game for like 20 minutes as is. If someone tapped me on the shoulder in the middle of it, I would poop out my spine.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a unrelated question. So are you guys planning on checking out the EVGA new audio thing? It's not really related to this, but they're a new entry in the sound system.
Yeah. We definitely want to review it. I think the issue is other hardware. But yeah. Definitely I'm interested because I want to give it attention. Honestly, I still never formally reviewed the AE5.
Mm-hmm. And now they have the AE9.
They have the AE9, but I mean, AE5 is for gamers. But it's nice to see that there are companies that care about PC audio again. So
it definitely seems to be enjoying a resurgence.
Yeah. I'll say I plugged it into my system at work just to see how it works for my professional applications, and I've already ran into one software bug where you can't change the headphone independently from the speaker outs. So if you change the volume and the system level, it changes it defaults to the actual speakers, which then control the headphones. So you could have the headphones at 100%, but if the speakers are at 0, you don't get anything. So as you go up on the speakers, it also affects the headphones. So like I can't control those. Usually it's like a toggle. Like Creative is usually, hey, output on Windows, you either get the headphone output or the speaker output. Here it's just one output, and unfortunately there's not a way to. So right now, like if I just want to listen to headphones, I have to turn my speakers off because they're powered speakers. So then I can just get the headphones. But yeah, I mean, that's a software thing. Once again, I think it shows like they're new to the space. So they have a lot to figure out. I mean, the software is very basic at this point. So.
You're talking about the EVGA card?
Yeah, the new audio. Yeah.
I kind of wish, and I don't think I've ever seen that, you could address speakers and headphones separately, the volume levels. I don't think usually they break it out, right?
But yeah, usually you break it up in Windows.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It'd be nice from within their control panel, because a lot of people do run speakers. If you could just mute the speakers and then run your headphone amp.
Well, that's what I thought too, because you can mute. So if you mute the headphones, it doesn't affect the speakers, but if you mute the speakers, it mutes the headphones. So the headphones are tied for some reason just to the output, and so, like I said, the only way I've been able to figure out is just turn off my powered speakers, and then I just have headphones. So, but
that's annoying.
Yeah. I mean, especially in a environment here where, I want to be able to listen to speakers to show people stuff, but obviously if I'm editing a bunch of Gordon, people don't want to hear him over and over again.
Nobody does. Nobody wants to hear that guy. Nobody.
Anyway, audio, it's always good to talk about it, and we love it. So
yes, and it makes all games look better.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the Q&A section, because we haven't done a proper Q&A section in a while. I have a couple questions already lined up, but if you want a question in the YouTube or Twitch or wherever chat, add it at PC World so I can see it easier. But yeah, this can be questions about anything. CES, the holidays, anything.
Ask us anything.
Ask us anything. So the first one, it comes in from Richard. He says, do you think the new Razer Blade 15 is worth getting? I'm thinking about it, but I heard about how they break easily and thermal fan problems.
I can't say anything in my experience to breaking easily, because we don't try to break laptops.
We try not to.
Yeah, because they all go back to the vendors and they go like, hey, you broke our laptop. That's not cool. So I know that definitely, I really sort of think with Razer, it is a different level of OEM or ODM, if you want to call it that. When you get to Dell, HP, Alienware, all the big folks that do their own designs and they have huge engineering teams, versus Razer, who is a lot smaller. They don't have the engineering resources of Dell, HP, and Alienware at all. MSI, Asus. It's going to be different. So I think it's a little bit, I wouldn't call it an English car, but it definitely is going to be, you are buying into a smaller support system. So I know that with the Razer Blade 15, there were reported issues on Amazon. I asked them, they said, they didn't see it, but I will say people were saying with the original, this last version, Razer Blade 15, people were saying, hey, my power brick blew up, and it was under warranty, but I couldn't get one for like 2 months because they were just so hard to get. So those are the kind of things you're going to get, right?
That makes sense, because even if you think about it, like Razer makes super customized, super specialized laptops. Like these are done. Like if you look at boutique builders, like say Origin, they tend to use, yes, they make their own, but they tend to use like Clevo cases,
right?
Which there's a greater supply of and stuff. So Razer's supply chain is probably much smaller for these parts than elsewhere. Yeah,
because they are very much designing their own laptops and then having them made, which is a huge undertaking. And it's a lot easier if you're using an off-the-shelf ODM design from Compal, Sager, etc. But yeah, I have not heard that they break easily. I will say, yeah, it's always tough because they, to put the amount of graphics they put into them and the CPU, it was a lot of hardware to try to cool in a small laptop like that. And I think that whole, they went with that vapor chamber design and that last one. I don't think that really played out. And I know one of their competitors was throwing shade at them because they said, yeah, that vapor chamber thing didn't work, did it? So.
Again, things that we hear all the time that we don't report on.
Yeah, but it's always fun to talk about.
Yeah.
Which,
in general, though, I think that if reliability and repairability are concerns, you're usually better off going with the bigger guys for all the reasons Gordon just said.
Yeah, just everything, supply chain, parts availability, those things really matter.
So on that same tip, Peter asked earlier when we were talking about leaks. Here, what leaks did you get in the past which turned out to be true, but it didn't happen due to changed plans or some technical problem? Can we even talk about things like that?
We can't even talk about them.
Yeah.
So there's things we can't talk about now that we know we've been told because we're under, our, nerds embargo not to break the secret.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I wouldn't mind talking about leaks that I've heard about in the past and didn't happen because of different things, but my concern would be burning the people who told me the information because I don't have it at the top of mind. So I try not to talk about stuff like that too much.
And is it a leak? I mean, is it really a leak? Because it is real information based on what they know.
Yeah, it's not a leak. It's not.
So there's things we have to not talk about. So unfortunately.
Yeah.
It is very rare that we are truly surprised by a product launch.
This is a little out of left field, but I didn't know if maybe Ian's had some ideas about this. Pros and cons of using a VPN.
The pros are you can use public Wi-Fi without worrying about it. I mean, you have, depending what you're using it for, you could use it to access content that's only available in other countries. It's just more secure in general, et cetera, et cetera. Comcast won't even know what you're looking at. But on the flip side, it's not the magic bullet that some people think it is, because the sites that you visit will still know. Like if you sign into Facebook and going through a VPN, Facebook is still going to know that it's you because you're signed into your account. And the VPN company itself knows what you're doing, obviously, right? So it's going through their servers. They can still keep track of you. The better VPN companies out there have policies in place to say, hey, we get rid of this, et cetera, et cetera. We don't track any of it. But you can't be guaranteed of it. So there's pluses and minuses there. But in general, if you just look, like if you're dealing with sensitive data ever and you have a VPN that you can trust, and you go out and travel a lot and using Wi-Fi and stuff, that makes it a whole lot less susceptible to someone else picking up on it.
And don't we actually have a VPN hub on our website, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, by Ian Paul. I'm going to put that in the link.
What do you run? Do you run anything, Brad? Any particular favorite?
I run, when I need to, IDG's super secret custom VPN.
Ooh.
Oh boy, that's
The
everything
company
we've come to expect of years of. So I actually run Nord. I'm a big fan of Nord. It's pretty cheap. They have a no log policy supposedly. I don't know if that really matters if they get hit by a subpoena, but pretty good. I would say the cons are performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somebody said that. Yeah.
Yes. Number 2 is obviously you got to pay for it, and then 3. They can be flaky, like especially if you're running it on a laptop. You go in and out of hibernation and sleep all the time. VPN, half the time it doesn't work after you come out of hibernation, and it just screws you up. So,
And free VPNs always track you and sell your data in aggregate. If you're just using it to look at, risque sites while somewhere you're not supposed to, whatever, who cares? But don't put truly personal data through a free VPN service.
yeah.
All right, we have a lot of nice questions still coming in. Those who slay together stay together. Radeon 7, can we expect reviews at launch or before? I'd like to know ahead of time, but I imagine there will be an embargo.
Yeah, I would imagine there would be an embargo, and I would imagine it would be relatively close to the launch.
Yeah. I don't think they've changed their minds. It's been pretty normal for everybody.
The ship day, I think, is the 7th of February is, I think, the day that they said for it to hit the streets. And traditionally with graphics cards, just speaking of graphics cards in the past, it's been either on or very close to street launch time.
And when did they say the launch was? February? I forget.
February 7th, I think.
Okay, so it's not that far.
Which would make sense because it's the Radeon 7, so I'm going to go with must be February 7th.
That's funny. RM's asking, what's the best 1080p video card right now, Brad?
Depends on what frame rate you're looking to do, but assuming you have a 60 hertz monitor, like we were talking about earlier, I would be all over one of those super cheap Radeon RX 580s right now.
What about for higher? 144 or 240?
Ooh, those are two very different needs.
I'm a pro gamer, Brad. Pro gamer.
He's got to have
The
the Nikes.
2060, the RTX 2060 is pretty decent at ultra high refresh rates. It won't quite hit 144 hertz. You can always go up basically with graphics cards to drip those ultra fast refresh rates, but the 2060 is pretty decent at high refresh 1080p resolution.
Okay, but not 240. We're talking about 140s. So if
Yeah,
you really
140s.
you're a real pro gamer, you really need to step up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's how it always is, how it always will be.
All right. Victorion, why are there no 1440p 240 hertz monitors?
Nobody's made them yet. Those are
Is there a technical limitation or something?
Probably.
the horsepower. Like, we're talking now about how much horsepower it would take to, like, you need a very high-end card to try to come anywhere near 240 hertz, even at 1080p. If you crank that up to 1440p, it's even more so. So I think the potential market for that would actually, like, the people who want it really want it, but the actual potential market for it, I think, would be very small. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's why you don't see those so much. 240 hertz monitors are still fairly new, too. Like, they've only been out for a couple years, few years. They're a niche market, so.
Yeah, I don't even know who's making all those 240 hertz panels that were used in those, but typically, you know, I'm not a panel monitor nerd, but typically, you know, AU or Sharp or whoever comes up and they says, hey, we can do 240 at XX resolution. They do it, and then suddenly everybody has it in their laptops and monitors. So,
Yep.
And then the crazy thing is, will people market beyond that, right? 240 in it, on the face of it, 240 seems insane, right? Unless you really are a pro gamer. I mean, really. But could you see the next step? Like, hey, we're doing 300 and 500. I mean, is
The
it
problem
just
is
like a
the gap
marketing?
gets so small. Like,
Yeah.
if you're able to get a video card that feeds it at those speeds, like, you can see a difference between 240 and 144 hertz if you're paying real close attention and you use them for a little bit. But it's much smaller than the gap between 60 frames per second and 120 because, like, the millisecond frame times are much smaller. So going beyond 240, I don't like we're talking, it's hard to even get 1440p monitors at 240. Going beyond 240, like, you'd be real hard pressed to tell the difference.
But that doesn't stop people from marketing it. Brad. Like,
For
how
sure.
many DPI on your mouse?
8K.
Right? I don't know what they're even up to now. What are they up to? Like 20,000 DPI on a mouse?
It's like,
Come
yeah,
on.
6 digits at least.
But,
I
you know,
read mine. It's funny. I was just doing a thing the other day. Apparently, most desktop mice run at 800 DPI.
that sounds about right.
I run mine at 9,000, and I
What?
cannot imagine
What? 9,000?
DPI.
Dude, you're so elite. I had no idea.
Do you really?
That's only like halfway up the scale for this.
What?
But yeah,
Dang.
I was just turning my mouse resolution down yesterday. I'm not even making that up. I was
mine's
like,
like 2,400, I think.
really?
Yeah.
after I was doing that, because I was editing a piece from Ian, and I'm like, I wonder how fast the normal one is. So I looked into all that. I'm like, 800. So I started cranking mine down. I have a Razer Death Adder down to 4,000. I'm like, how does anybody do this? You get down to like 1,000. It's just like, oh my. Like, it took me like a minute to go from one end of the screen to the other.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
I try to get a lot of stuff done.
I'm not. See,
That's how Brad gets so much work done. Now I know. Dang it. He's a
9,000
productivity
DPI.
master. Dang.
See, and like Brad thinks it makes him better. I mean,
Well,
it's
it
just
does.
Like, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
I need a 500
Dang.
hertz panel. That's just
awesome.
to make me a better gamer. I literally turned it down to 1,500. I switched back from that the Corsair Dark Core SE. It just was not, the mouse pad and the feel of it was not working for my head. I actually went back to an older Corsair, I think an M65 or something.
It makes a difference. It really makes a difference. Hand
So,
feel.
I mean, that's the most important thing. And then I cranked it from 2,000 DPI down to 1,500 DPI because I was too lazy to go into the Windows control panel and mess with that. So,
We got a couple CPU related questions for you, Gordon.
Yeah.
Marzas No Whack says, "Where's Intel i5 9400?"
where is it?
Where is
I don't know. You mean like?
Do you have one?
I do not actually have one. Honestly,
He left it on his desk. Yeah.
I've been so busy with everything else. Are we even like? I don't even know if that's even out. You know, honestly, I've not paid attention to it. So.
Okay. What about this one?
Oh, the F part.
I don't know. It didn't say F. No. Who knows? Frank R says, when can we expect mobile 45-watt 9th gen parts from Intel?
Mobile 45-watt 9th gen parts. I don't know. Next year, I would think, because
this year, you mean, right?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible. Who knows where it's going to go? I mean, what?
I'm curious to see if
we're
they
talking
skip
about.
Because they're talking 9th gen. Because right now it's the 8750H, whereas desktop's on 9000. I'm curious to see if they skip 9000 in laptops and just jump ahead to Sunny Cove or whatever towards the end of the year.
Yeah, that's because I kind of think they'll just go to 10th. I mean, I don't think they're going to get a. I mean, who knows though, right? Because who really thought the 8750H would be the fantastic CPU that it is? Because it's 45-watt 6 cores. Are they really going to get an 8-core down at 45-watt TDP? Of course, they're not really 45-watt TDP, but
yeah,
it's just, it's. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't have much insight into that. There've been rumors of some parts coming out. It's
8750H was pretty late last year, wasn't it? Wasn't it like summer that the mobile gaming ones came out?
Yeah, because they did the intro in the first quarter of the year, and they kind of rolled in a couple months later. So, and then i9, all the excitement was around the i9, but the 8750H was a fantastic CPU. So, they've been around. Is there going to be a 9th gen version? Are they really going to up the core count on that? I mean, I guess it depends on how they feel they have to react to AMD. But
I wish we had this question on the predictions episode, because I'm going to predict there's no 9th. I'm not going to formally predict. I'm not eating paper, but I don't think there's going to be a 9th gen. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes straight to Sunny Cove in the fall.
I'm just trying to think of, because I'm trying to factor in there is something coming. I can tell you that. So I can't tell you anything else. I'm trying to get everything kind of lined up in my brain. Okay, there will be a part later this year, is what I can tell you.
Cool.
There will be something.
Surprise.
There will be something sooner rather than later in laptops. That is, I think it will be an H part that is coming out.
That's going to be called Pirate Grove, right?
Yep. But if I
you heard it here first. You heard it here first. Intel will launch a CPU this year.
I didn't say it. I just found a leak from Acorn Electron on YouTube.
No, I'm just trying to remember because again, this gets into that whole, we talk with people. I think there is something anticipated for sooner-ish, but we're not talking Sunny Cove. It'll be the iteration. So what that'll be, I don't know, but there will be something. It sounds like.
Anthony says Cove Lake. There we go. That's the next one.
Is that it? I forget which one it is.
No, I'm kidding. That would just be funny. Cove Lake. Blue Kid's asking, what game do you think would work great with RTX tech? Personally, I think Mirror's Edge with real-time reflections would be great.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Ever since I tried the Battlefield demo at Gamescom when they announced RTX, and it's not the game that we ended up doing. It was just you wandering through the level in the initial trailer, looking at all the reflections bouncing off the windows, et cetera, et cetera. Hearing about all the real-time, lighting and shadows and et cetera that's possible. The second that I touched it, I really want a Thief game with RTX technology. I'm really intrigued to see how Metro Exodus does next month, I guess, because that's also going to have it. But I would love a good stealth game with RTX technology in it.
Yeah, I can dig it.
Yeah, I can see that.
World of Warships 2. Gordon?
I do wonder, what... I wonder how hard it is to maintain both lighting engines in a game. Like the development behind both lighting engines. At one point, you got to figure they're going to go all in, but even then, they're going to have to support the bulk of the market, which is on the older lighting engines. So they have to do both.
Yep.
It just feels like it's going to be a long time before we get a full, everything in game.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's go with Deus Ex. I want a new Deus Ex game. They said the sequel to Mankind Divided was canceled. Bring it back with ray tracing, and I'll be happy.
Nice. Here's a good question. It's a little long, so hold it with me. Zero Cool asked, Can you guys do NVIDIA AMD driver software? How do you guys set up the driver software for your testing? Your whole testing methodology. In a sense, I was wondering if all you guys use default driver settings for all benchmarks or custom, depending on the game, and how does that affect the final performance?
So basically, I wipe out the old drivers completely, both by uninstalling them and also using DDU, I believe it's called, the tool. Direct Driver Uninstaller, I think it's called, which is an excellent tool. You should use it if, you have driver weirdness at any point. And I go in, and if you go in the control panels, sometimes they can enable weird proprietary technologies, like NVIDIA has a couple of them, and I disable all those. And then I have set settings that I run each game in. I don't use the defaults because some games will read your hardware and try to pick defaults. This CPU generation, I built a new system and a new test suite with the RTX technology. I'm basically testing all at Ultra, just to really hammer it as hard as possible, using the same settings, any proprietary stuff like Hairworks or anything like that disabled so it's apples to oranges. And test that way so that everything's as comparable as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, for CPUs, I use the same graphics driver and video cards for all of them. So, and I verified the performance of the card, so there's no difference between them. They're actually, I think, almost serialized too for the 3 1080s that I use.
And unlike what was it, the Intel third-party benchmarking company that got into so much trouble over
Principal Tech. Yeah.
Principal Tech. We don't use a bunch of different machines to test graphics cards, even though that would actually save me a lot of time and trouble. We use a single system so that it's always everything in the system is the exact same from software to hardware, except for the graphics card and driver being swapped out.
Yeah,
and that only gets updated every once in a while.
It gets updated whenever I run a GPU review. It gets updated with the latest drivers, and I rerun tests on the comparable cards as well to see if there's any change, because drivers can make a big difference, particularly if you're testing a newer game. And if there is a noticeable change, then I'll rerun benchmarks on the comparable cards too. So a graphics card review that you see, like the Radeon RX 590 just came out, you might think, oh, wow, he had to run all those tests on the Radeon RX 590, but I actually had to benchmark 5 different cards in order to make that one graphics card review. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a pain with CPU. And with CPUs, it's a pain too because of Windows 10. You really have to keep re-rolling everything. In the old days, and I really do mean the old days, nothing would really change. So you could recycle benchmarks, but now these days with Windows, you have to basically build up new machines, re-image everything all over again, reinstall, and build several different machines all at once to compare from the ground up, for the most part, for most of the benchmarks, to be fair.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, looks like some good insight. Couple questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Robert Cox over on YouTube asked, are AMD and NVIDIA intentionally holding back product and announcements to try to get a PR win? If so, how much does this negativity affect the consumer? Great question.
I don't think so. I think that the RTX generation was delayed because of the mining situation, but I don't think that's necessarily to hold anything back to hurt anybody, if that happens to even be the case. It's just, reacting to the market. I mean, these are expensive pieces of luxury hardware selling for relatively expensive things, and I don't think anybody's holding anything back to try to hurt anybody. In an ideal world, all these companies would want their stuff out right now and people buying it right now. So,
yeah, and I think it's not like they're sitting on secret Area 51 technology that they could release at any time. I do think it's based on the reality of the situation where people are not going to pay $2,000 or $3,000 for a graphics card, so they can't make that. If you can't make it and sell it, then you have to make the compromised product, and then you have to consider what your competitors are doing, what your competitors are going to do, because ultimately they are technology companies and they are also companies there to make a profit. They can make the coolest thing ever that everybody will respect and love, and then no one will buy, and that doesn't help anybody because they go out of business. So they have to make what's best for them to continue forward to exist. And they are not there to serve us necessarily. They are there to serve their investors. But the great side effect is we get awesome hardware when they do it. So I think it's those conspiracy theories of them sitting on stuff is it's not really well deserved. There's reasons why it doesn't get introduced. So
Okay.
they may have
anytime
something.
a product's canceled, there's a reason for it.
Right. I mean, I'm sure both of them, all three of them, Intel have canceled plenty of things. We know that. And the reality is it probably would have failed, and they probably knew it. So why bother?
And it costs so much money to plan and design and set up at a fabrication facility these GPUs and CPUs that to make the call not to ship something is actually very financially painful. So ideally, they want to ship everything.
Yeah. But yeah, there is no Indiana Jones warehouse full of just boxes and boxes of these graphics cards and CPUs are waiting to ship.
All right, cool. There was one last question that kind of came in that I was kind of interested in, if we got a minute. Why do GPUs cost more than CPUs?
They're bigger. They have a lot more. They have a lot more stuff on them. The CPU, basically, if you buy a desktop CPU, you're buying the CPU, right? The die. You're not buying the motherboard. You're not buying the memory. You're not buying all this. A graphics card is its own self-contained piece of hardware that has all that technology and cooling and all that stuff built into it. So there's just a lot more there.
Yeah. And of course, if you are asking if I would disagree that CPUs are always cheaper than GPUs because I can sell you a Xeon that will certainly cost more than the most expensive GeForce card, right?
That's true.
Easily. And you also look at the profit margins of the companies. Intel makes a pretty penny on their CPUs. So
Cool. All right. Last question. Super Bowl predictions. Go, Brad.
Patriots.
How do I know you're going to say
I say this from wonderful New England, where it's rained ice for 2 days and felt like negative 25 yesterday. We can do that. We can live through the Rams.
I am not a Patriots fan. Look up Oakland Raiders, Patriots, snow job, and you will understand why. Forever in my heart, I will never.
I have a story behind that game. That was such a community building event. I'm not going to go into it. It's long, but it's great. I remember that game too.
I will never, in my heart, ever in my entire life, root for the Patriots to ever win any game on the planet at any time in history. At the same time, last week, Adam can verify this. I predicted the Patriots would win because you're talking Tom Brady here.
Yep.
I said they're going to win.
Andy Reid.
And I think what's going to happen, and the best thing is the Patriots are going to win. And the best thing about that is I don't have to go to the Super Bowl party because I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to go do something else.
For me, as a Patriots fan, I'm actually a Bucs fan. I grew up in Tampa, but I've lived over half my life in New England. They're my AFC team. The first Super Bowl of the Belichick-Brady era that they won was against the Rams back when it was, the highest scoring show on earth.
The video cam era, I think? Was that? What video camera did they use to
That was right
tape?
before that.
No, that was it. Remember,
it was a hand crank camera.
They actually recorded the walkthrough of the Rams and the.
Regardless, that was the first Super Bowl that they won versus the Rams, right? So if the Patriots can beat the Rams yet again,
then they
full
quit?
circle, Tom Brady can retire, Rob Gronkowski can retire,
Why would Tom Brady need to retire, Brad? I mean,
that dude's looking a little rough this year, man.
He's still making
so much
money.
Whatever.
He's looking a little rough.
He's like,
I know you're used to Derek Carr. I mean, you don't have very high standards, but the dude's looking a little
you
rough.
just brought up the Buccaneers. So the Raiders are just the perpetual Charlie Brown of the league. Only the Raiders would get to the Super Bowl to play their former coach who they traded to the Bucs and then not change a damn play. Only the Raiders would do that.
I actually have a giant wall-sized mural that my wife made me after the Super Bowl thing hanging up in my living room.
I'm never going to root for the Patriots. Never. I don't care, but I will. I'm not going to be a hater. I'm going to tell the truth. The Patriots going to win. And you know what? People need to just they're better. and they might have cheated to get there, maybe. But at the same time, Warriors going to win too. I can already call it now. This is like the easiest NBA season ever. Warriors going to win. Adam,
I mean, I don't like the Patriots, but I was rooting for the Saints because I like Breeze. I thought it'd be fun to have Breeze get it.
They got robbed.
Yeah,
that was a real bad call in that one.
Yeah, but I grew up a Browns fan, so whatever.
Oof.
My life sucks.
My condolences.
Yeah. So I will never understand or taste that sweet victory. So either way,
So you're calling it for the Patriots as well.
Yeah, I mean, come on, like especially after a couple years ago,
The Rams were actually my pick. Like when people ask me in the preseason, who do you think's going to win the Super Bowl this year? With all the free agents to load up on, I'm like, it's got to be the Rams. But now that's the Patriots they're playing, I'm like,
I mean, it'll be a good game.
It's going to be a good game, and again. I don't know this because I went to go do something else. I didn't go to the Super Bowl party, but last year didn't do it, right? And it was like, really, you're going to lose to this quarterback who really doesn't deserve to be in the Super Bowl, and they did it. They lost, right? So could all happen again.
However, not to be too stereotypical of a New England fan, but I will point out that the Red Sox recently proved that it's not too difficult to beat LA. So.
Yeah. But that's not a...
Seems like most people in the chat either say they're for the Rams or that American football sucks.
Oh,
I heard some really good out saying the Chiefs really just did not. They couldn't do it. Their defense wasn't up to it, and I think you're saying the Rams' defense, their physicality is going to be a big problem for Brady. They couldn't pressure Brady that much, So we'll see. But you know what? Having rooted against Brady so long, I understand that we're probably going to be wrong again. So
yeah, of course.
I'm still. Yeah.
I mean, really, our only hope is for all of them to retire, and go away.
Yeah.
And it could happen if they beat the Rams. So you should all be voting for the Patriots.
Yeah. I'm not voting for it. I'm just saying, that would be my bet is the Patriots. I'm not saying I want them to win, but it is Tom Brady. So,
all right,
it's depressing.
Take us out of here.
Yeah,
Gordon, so we can go watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Check back next week for your fix of PC Talk on the Full Nerd. For audio listeners, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Oh, where are my notes? Send questions and comments to the full. Here we go. The Full Nerd at PCWorld.com. It's the end of the day, folks. It's actually the start of a week, long week. Thanks for coming. I'm Gordon Ung with Brad Charkis.
I'm going to go talk to secret people about secret things.
Oh, spoiler!
I'm expecting secret hardware and Adam Patrick Martyry.
Go Pats.
Turn us off.
Go ahead. Sure.
Oh, come
Win.
on.
Yay.